For who is the trustworthy and thoughtful servant? It's the one his master puts in charge of his household to provide them with food at the proper time. How good it will be for that servant to be found doing that when his master returns. I tell you the truth, the master will put that servant in charge over everything he has. But if he was evil, the servant would say to himself, "My master is taking a long time," and would start beating the other servants, feasting and drinking with the drunks. Then that servant's master will return when the man doesn't expect him, at a time he doesn't know. He'll cut him to pieces and treat him in the same way as the hypocrites, sending him to a place where there's crying and gnashing of teeth. Let's take Abraham as an example. From a human viewpoint, he is the father of our nation. Let's ask, what was his experience? For if Abraham was set right by what he did, he would have had something to boast about, but not in God's eyes. However, what does Scripture say? Abraham trusted God, and so he was considered as being a good person who did right. Whoever works gets paid. It's not considered as a gift, but because they've earned their wages. But God, who makes sinners right, considers them as right not because they've worked for it, but because they trust in Him. This is why David speaks of the happiness of those whom God considers as right, and not because they worked for it. How happy are those whose wrongs are forgiven and whose sins are covered. How happy are those the Lord does not consider sinful. Now, is this blessing just for the Jews, or is it for others too? We've just stated that Abraham was accepted as good and right because he trusted God. But when did this happen? When Abraham was a Jew or before? It was actually before he became a Jew by being circumcised, which was a confirmation of his trust in God to make him right. This happened before he was circumcised, so he is the father of everyone who trusts in God and are considered as right by God, even though they may not be circumcised Jews. He is also the father of circumcised Jews, not merely because they're circumcised, but because they follow the example of the trust in God our father Abraham had before he was circumcised. A Psalm of Asaph. Listen to what I have to teach you, my people. Hear what I have to say. I will tell you wise sayings. I will explain mysteries from the past that we have heard before and reflected on, stories our forefathers passed down to us. We will not keep them from our children. We will tell the next generation about God's marvelous actions, about His power and the amazing things He has done. He gave His laws to the descendants of Jacob, His instructions to the people of Israel. He commanded our forefathers to teach them to their children, so that the next generation, children yet to be born, would understand and grow up to teach their children. In this way, they should place their trust in God and not forget what God has done and keep His commandments. Then they would not be like their forefathers, a stubborn and rebellious generation that was untrustworthy and unfaithful. The soldiers of Ephraim, though armed with bows, ran away on the day of battle. They did not keep God's agreement and refused to follow His laws. They ignored what He had done and the amazing things He had shown them, the miracles He had performed for their forefathers near Zoan in Egypt. He split the sea in two and led them through, making the water stand like walls on either side. He led them with a cloud by day and by night with a light of fire. He split open rocks in the desert to give His people plenty to drink, water as deep as the ocean. He made streams flow from the stone, water rushing down like rivers. But they repeatedly sinned against Him, rebelling against the Most High in the desert. They deliberately provoked God by demanding the foods they longed for. They insulted God by saying, "Can God provide food here in the desert? Yes, He can strike a rock so that water gushes out like flowing rivers, but can He give us bread? Can He supply His people with meat?" When He heard this, the Lord became very angry, burning like fire against the descendants of Jacob, furious with the people of Israel, for they didn't believe in God and didn't trust Him to take care of them. Better to be poor but honest than stupid and tell lies. It's not good to be someone who doesn't think. If you rush, things go wrong. People mess up their lives by their own stupidity and then get angry with the Lord. If you're rich, you get a lot of friends, but if you're poor, you lose any friends you had. A false witness will be punished. Liars won't get away with their lies. People of Israel, pay attention to the rules and regulations I'm teaching you to observe. That way you can stay alive and go in and take over the country the Lord, the God of your forefathers, is giving you. You are not to add to or take away from what I'm telling you, so that you can keep the commandments of the Lord your God that I'm ordering you to follow. You've seen for yourselves what the Lord did at Baal-Peor, where the Lord your God killed everyone among you who worship Baal of Peor. Those of you who are faithful to the Lord your God are still alive today, every one of you. Listen, I have taught you the rules and regulations just as the Lord my God ordered me to do, so you can follow them in the country that you are about to enter and take over. Be careful to observe them, because this will demonstrate your wisdom and insight to the other people living there who are watching. They will find out about all these rules and say, "The people of this great nation are very wise and have good insight." What nation is as great as us, having a God so close to them as the Lord our God is to us whenever we call on him? What nation is as great as us, having such good rules and regulations like all these laws that I'm placing before you today? Just make sure to be very careful and really watch what you do so you don't forget the things you've seen. Keep them in mind as long as you live. Teach them to your children and grandchildren. That day when you stood in the presence of the Lord your God at Horeb, the Lord told me, "Have the people come to me and to hear what I have to say, so they may learn to have respect for me throughout their lives here on earth, and so they may teach this to their children." You gathered and stood at the foot of the mountain. The mountain was on fire, shooting out flames into the sky and producing thick dark clouds. The Lord spoke to you from the fire. You heard the words, but you didn't see the form of anyone speaking. There was just a voice. He explained to you his agreement, the 10 Commandments, which he ordered you to follow. He wrote them down on 2 tablets of stone. This was the time that the Lord ordered me to teach you the rules and regulations that you are to follow when you arrive in the country you're going to own once you've crossed the Jordan. You didn't see any form when the Lord spoke to you from the fire at Horeb. So be very careful that you don't spoil your relationship with the Lord by making an idol for yourselves in any shape or form, whether it looks like a male or female, or any land animal or bird that flies, or of any animal that crawls on the ground, or any fish in the deep sea. When you look up at the sky and see the sun, moon, and stars, all the heavenly bodies, don't be tempted to bow down to them. Don't worship them like all the other nations on earth in the way that the Lord has allowed. Remember that the Lord took you and led you out of the iron furnace, which was in Egypt, to be his own people, just as you are today. But the Lord was angry with me because of you, and he vowed that I wouldn't cross the Jordan to enter the good land that the Lord your God is giving you to own. So I will not be crossing the Jordan because I have to die here in this land. But you will cross over and occupy that good land. However, be careful not to forget the agreement of the Lord your God that he made with you. Don't make an idol for yourselves in the form of anything, because he has forbidden you to do this. For the Lord your God is a fire that burns everything up. He is an exclusive God. After you have been living in the country for a long time and have had children and grandchildren, you may then spoil the relationship you have with the Lord and make an idol in some form. The Lord your God sees this as evil, and it makes him angry. If you do this, I call on heaven and earth to be witnesses against you today that you will be completely wiped out from the country that you are crossing the Jordan to occupy. You will not live long there. You will be totally destroyed. The Lord will scatter you among the other nations, and not many of you will survive in the countries where the Lord has exiled you. There you will worship gods of wood and stone made by human beings. These idols can't see or hear or eat or smell. However, if while you're there you decide to come to the Lord your God, you will find him if you come to him wholeheartedly with complete commitment. When you are in trouble, after you've experienced all these things, then eventually you will return to the Lord your God and do what he says. The Lord your God is a merciful God. He won't abandon you or destroy you or forget the agreement he made with your forefathers, confirmed by a solemn promise. Think about it. Examine the whole of history from the beginning of time, long before you existed, when God made human beings, right up until now. ask this question anywhere from one end of the earth to the other. Has anything as amazing as this ever happened before? Has anyone ever heard anything like this? Has a people ever heard the voice of God speaking out of the fire like you have and survived? Has any God tried to take a nation out of another nation and make them his own, using tests and signs and miracles and war, with his great power and incredible strength and terrifying actions, like the Lord your God did for you in Egypt before your very eyes? You were shown all this so you could be certain that the Lord is God and there is no one like him. He made you hear his voice from heaven so you would obey him. On earth he revealed himself through blazing fire, and you heard him speak to you from the fire. Because he loved your forefathers, he chose you, their descendants. He himself led you out of Egypt by his great power, driving out ahead of you nations that were greater and stronger than you, in order to lead you to their land and give it to you as yours to own, just as you do today. So today be sure about this and never forget. The Lord is the only God in heaven above and on the earth below. Observe his rules and regulations that I'm giving you right now, so that you and your children will do well, and that you may have long lives in the country that the Lord your God is giving you for all time. Then Moses assigned 3 sanctuary towns to the east of the Jordan where a person could run to after accidentally killing someone without deliberate hatred. To save their life, they could run to one of these towns: Bezer in the desert plain belonging to the tribe of Reuben, Ramoth in Gilead belonging to the tribe of Gad, or Golan in Bashan belonging to the tribe of Manasseh. This is the law that Moses placed before the Israelites. These are the laws, rules, and regulations Moses gave them after they had come out of Egypt. This was when they were in the valley to the east of the Jordan near Beth Peor in the country of Sihon king of the Amorites. He had ruled from Heshbon and had been defeated by Moses and the Israelites after they had left Egypt. They took over his country and the country of Og king of Bashan. They were the 2 kings of the Amorites who previously ruled on the east side of the Jordan. The territory went from the town of Aroer on the edge of the Arnon Valley all the way to Mount Sirion, otherwise known as Mount Hermon, and included all the Arabah to the east of the Jordan down as far as the Dead Sea beside the slopes of Mount Pisgah.